It was an old mansion, tucked away on the outskirts of a sleepy town. For years, it stood abandoned, its windows boarded up, and its gardens overrun with weeds. The townspeople whispered about the house, passing down rumors about the strange things that happened inside. They said it was cursed. Some even claimed they saw strange lights flickering in the windows at night, but no one dared to go near. One rainy afternoon, a young woman named Emma arrived at the town, searching for a place to escape. She had recently moved to the area, seeking a fresh start after a difficult breakup. Emma was an artist who enjoyed quiet, solitary places to find inspiration. She had heard about the mansion and, against all warnings, decided to explore it. I can handle it, she thought. It's just an old house. It's probably nothing. With a mix of curiosity and excitement, Emma made her way to the mansion. The gates creaked as she pushed them open, the rusted metal protesting against her touch. The air felt heavy, as though it was charged with something unnatural. The mansion was even more imposing up close. The brick walls were weathered, and the roof sagged in places. Yet there was something strangely beautiful about it. Emma felt a strange pull, as if the house itself was inviting her in. She hesitated for a moment, but her desire for adventure overcame any lingering doubt. "Let's see what this place is really about," she murmured to herself. She pushed open the large front door, which groaned loudly as it swung open. Inside, the air was thick with dust. Cobwebs hung from the corners, and the floors creaked under her every step. The interior was shrouded in darkness, the only light coming from the faint glow of the afternoon sun filtering through cracks in the boarded-up windows. As she wandered through the grand hallway, Emma noticed something strange. There was a large antique mirror hanging on the wall at the end of the corridor. It stood out among the old paintings and portraits, its frame intricately carved with symbols Emma didn't recognize. She was drawn to it, as if it were calling her. Her heart raced as she took a few steps closer, her reflection becoming clearer in the mirror. But something felt off. Emma frowned, leaning in closer. Her reflection appeared to be distorted. The image of her face was slightly twisted, almost as if it wasn't quite right. She reached out to touch the glass, but as her fingers made contact, a cold chill ran down her spine. The reflection of her hand seemed to linger in the mirror longer than it should have. "That's odd," she whispered to herself. Suddenly, the reflection in the mirror flickered. Emma jerked back in shock. Her own reflection didn't move as she did. It stayed still, staring at her with a strange, vacant expression. Then, just as quickly, the reflection mirrored her movements again, as though nothing had happened. Emma stepped back, her pulse quickening. She felt a strange unease settling over her. She wasn't sure what she had just witnessed, but it didn't feel like a mere trick of the light. Suddenly there was a sound from behind her, a soft whisper, faint but clear. It sounded like someone was calling her name. "Emma, Emma," the voice whispered, echoing through the empty halls. Her heart skipped a beat. She turned around quickly, expecting to see someone, but there was no one there. The house was as silent as ever. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice shaky. No answer. The silence was deafening. Emma shook her head, trying to dismiss the feeling of dread creeping up her spine. She turned back to the mirror, determined to leave the room and explore another part of the mansion. But as she looked into the glass again, her reflection didn't change. It stood still, staring at her with that same eerie, vacant look. "Stop it," Emma muttered under her breath. "It's just a mirror." But the reflection did not stop. It started to smile. Not the friendly smile Emma had on her face, but something darker. The smile grew wider, more sinister, as if the reflection was mocking her. Her breath caught in her throat. She stepped backward, stumbling as she tried to pull away from the mirror. "Please stop," she whispered, her voice trembling. "This isn't real." But the reflection in the mirror continued to smile, and then it spoke. "Leave now or you'll never escape," the reflection said, its voice a low, rasping whisper. Emma froze, her blood running cold. She couldn't breathe. Her mind raced. Was this some kind of prank? Had someone set her up? But the longer she stared at the reflection, the more she realized this wasn't some trick. The reflection wasn't just mocking her, it was threatening her. Without thinking, Emma turned and ran. She bolted down the hallway, her footsteps echoing in the silent house. She could feel the air closing in around her, as if the walls were moving, pushing her toward the mirror. Her heart pounded in her chest as she burst through the front door and into the night. But as she stepped outside, something felt wrong. The house. It wasn't the same anymore. The once dark and oppressive mansion was now completely silent. The garden seemed to stretch farther than it should have, and the gates that had once creaked open now stood closed, as if they had never been open at all. Emma looked back at the house, a feeling of dread washing over her. The mirror. She realized now that the mirror had been cursed. It had drawn her in, trapping her inside its twisted reflection. And now it wouldn't let her leave. The days passed, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the mansion and the mirror were always watching her. No matter where she went, no matter how far she tried to escape, she could still feel the coldness of that reflection lurking in the back of her mind. The whispers in the house grew louder, echoing in her ears, calling her name, urging her to return. It was a restless night when Emma finally decided she had no choice. She would have to go back to the mansion and confront whatever force had control of the mirror. She could not live with the fear any longer. The next day, she took a deep breath and gathered the courage to return. As she approached the mansion once again, she noticed the gates were wide open, as though they were waiting for her. The wind howled, sending a chill down her spine, but Emma pressed forward. She was determined to break the curse. As she entered the house, the familiar smell of dust and decay filled her nostrils. The whispers from the mirror grew louder as she neared the hallway, and the cold air seemed to wrap around her like a blanket. When she reached the door of the room with the mirror, she hesitated. The thought of looking into it again terrified her, but she had to face it. She had no choice. "Please let me go," Emma whispered to the mirror. "I don't want to be trapped anymore." But the reflection in the mirror didn't answer. It simply stared back at her, its smile now wider than ever. Emma knew she had to destroy the mirror. She grabbed a nearby candle holder, raised it high, and with a strength she didn't know she had, she threw it at the glass. The mirror shattered with a deafening crack, sending shards of glass flying through the air. For a moment, everything went silent. Emma waited, her heart in her throat, to see what would happen next. Then, slowly, the whispers stopped. The air in the room began to change, the oppressive heaviness lifting. The cursed hold of the mirror was finally broken. Emma breathed a sigh of relief, feeling the weight on her chest lift. But as she turned to leave, she glanced back one last time. The pieces of the shattered mirror lay scattered on the floor, but one shard glinted in the dim light, reflecting a part of her face. She paused. For a moment she thought she saw something different in the shard, a dark, twisted version of herself. But when she blinked, it was gone. With a shudder, Emma walked out of the house for the last time, never looking back. She knew she would never forget the curse of the mirror, but at least it was over, or so she hoped.